Hello and welcome to another episode of the CG Garage. This is episode number 344, featuring David Siegel, Executive Director, and David Wolgemuth, VFX Studio Lead and Teacher over at Exceptional Minds, an amazing organization that we got acquainted to during the 24 Hours of Chaos, but decided to do a long-form interview with them. Kristen, tell us a little bit. First of all, tell our audience what Exceptional Minds is, and then talk about our guests after that.
Okay. So Exceptional Minds, it's an academy and studio that prepares young adults on the autism spectrum for careers in animation, visual effects, 3D gaming, and just all sorts of places in the entertainment industry.
Right.
So we had two Davids on. So David Siegel, their executive director, he came from like marketing at Disney, kind of traveling all over the world doing that, came to Exceptional Minds, and his son, which was a huge inspiration for him. But I will that story is just really awesome. So I'll let you guys hear that. Yeah. And then David Wolgemuth, he has come from the film industry, working at Bad Robot and Marvel, and just the way he's able to connect with the students, even David Siegel says this, it's amazing. It's like on a professional level, but also the teachers are also a mentor and friend to them.
Yes.
And what Exceptional Minds just also does, David Siegel says they're not just creating machines to go into work at these studios, they're trying to create well-rounded people. So, and everyone loves being there. Isaiah, who was on 24 Hours of Chaos, like it was so wonderful, like hearing what he had to say and where he's now working. So.
Yeah, absolutely. And obviously these kids are very gifted in a lot of ways and it can really definitely serve the industry. But what I also thought was amazing is that he talks about how not only does he prepare the students to work in the industry, but he also prepares the companies to work with these students as well. Because obviously, even though they are able to function really well and do their job, there's a certain level of communication and a certain level of education that the businesses need to know how to communicate effectively with these great people. So it's just a great organization. Some of the stats and things that David Siegel says are incredible, and also David Wolgemuth, how he learned how to work with these students and how to teach them very specifically and very individually. It's such a great thing. And I'll tell you this, I am definitely inspired. Hopefully you guys will be inspired when you hear this, that you will want to be involved with them and help them out and contribute to this organization in some way. So make sure and check out our podcast page for links on how to get in touch with them and how to be part of this movement to sort of help these great people sort of go out there and serve the visual effects and gaming industry and in animation industry. So really great to have them. And I thank both Davids for being on for sure. Kristen, we don't have any specific announcements right now, but if people want to check them out, they can just go to chaosgroup.com/events. But if people want to know more about the podcast, where can they go?
You can go to facebook.com/CG Garage Podcast or chaos.com/CG Garage. And if you'd like to watch us, go to youtube.com/Chaos Group TV.
Perfect. And if you guys have any ideas or any thoughts or feedback on this podcast or other episodes we've done, please let us know. labs@chaosgroup.com is our email, and we would love to hear your thoughts on that, especially if you have ideas for guests. We always are looking for great ideas for guests, so make sure and email us, labs@chaosgroup.com, and we're definitely reaching out to some of those potential guests for sure. Other than that, if you guys would love to leave us a review on Apple Podcasts, we'd always welcome that, and as well, of course, share us with all of your friends and family if they're interested in finding out more about CG Garage. But with that being said, please enjoy episode number 344, David Siegel and David Wolgemuth from Exceptional Minds.
Welcome to another CG Garage, where the Chaos Group talks. You'll know it's over when the last bucket drops. We're gonna fire off rays in high dynamic range. We know that ambient occlusion is passé. Global illumination won't lead you astray. And while image-based lighting is really swell, You need to make sure everything has for now.
So listen, I really appreciate you guys doing this, and thanks for also David for being on Exceptional Mind. On 24 Hours of Chaos and telling us a little bit about Exceptional Minds there, which is great. But I thought that we really should have a more in-depth look at what you guys are doing and how special this program and this school is, and what you're able to do with all these great minds. And I'd love to sort of do a little bit more. But before we jump too much into this, let's give a quick introduction to who you are and you know how you got into this, and then we'll talk a little bit about the goals of your program. So let's go with David Siegel. Let's go with you first, if that's okay.
All right. Well, how much time do we have here?
We have an hour, but we can go longer.
No, it's great. I mean, listen, I've come from a very different world, but the worlds that I come from sort of collided that resulted in me being here. You know, I had 2 tours of duty at Disney, and more recently was leading marketing for one of the animation teams at Disney, and just had the time of my life, and was traveling the world, presenting strategy and creative for the Walt Disney Company, and you know, learning the finer art of animation, and loving every second of it. Really challenging role and leading an awesome team. And along the way, I mean, something very profound happened to my family, and this was our 6-year-old son discovered he had a friend with a rare disease, and he came to my wife and I and said, "Hey, I've got this friend, and I'd love to give him my piggy bank." And he's holding his like little, you know, metal piggy bank, and he hands it to us and says, I want you all to give this to my friend and make him better. And of course, my wife and I were so sort of impressed with one another and the compassionate child that we raised. We weren't actually paying any attention to the kid, you know, down below saying, "Hey guys, I want to do this." And so, you know, we thought we would give him some really great advice. You know, I was, you know, a marketer at Disney, and my wife was a producer, and you know, it was how could we not, you know, commence with amazing wisdom? And we said things like lemonade stand and bake sale. He thought these were horrible ideas. He didn't say it, but he was in his eyes saying, "I want to do something that scales." Anyway, long story short, he decided he wanted to write a book and create little characters and drawings, and called it Chocolate Bar, his expression for awesome. And, you know, one thing led to another, and he ended up, through his own sheer will and velocity, ended up selling 50,000 copies of the book and raised $1.5 million. And in doing so, it was wild. It was wow. It was a wild time. His adorable little itty bitty drawings that probably could be very much enhanced by some of your software. You know, definitely brought to life the sort of perils of this disease and whatnot. Anyway, the sort of net here is that, you know, it took my family on a very different course, a very different adventure. And that adventure was, you know, a pro-social, cause-based social impact journey. And we traveled the country with him and rode his coattails as he spoke to large audiences about what his mission was. And, you know, by the time he was 8 years old and raised all this money, I had realized that, listen, this little kid could achieve greatness at this age and use his voice for change. What am I doing? Like, why don't I step up and do something that could really make impact? So, you know, lo and behold, I sort of pivoted my career and was up for a couple of really interesting roles in the nonprofit space, based on my sort of, you know, verve and excitement around what he had done. And Exceptional Minds was one of them. And they brought me in to do partnerships. And I absolutely fell in love. I'd never seen anything like this before. I walked in and I met artists like Xavier, who had spent 3 years commuting back and forth to Exceptional Minds 5 days a week for 4 hours a day. Not unlike your commute, Dave. And it was remarkable to see his dedication, his devotion, and his sheer obsession with realizing his ambitions. And this is a man who, you know, in his 20s really felt hopeless and didn't really feel he had direction as someone with autism. And when he discovered his love of and talent in the art space, particularly in visual effects, Exceptional Minds answered his call. And within 3 years, he had finished the course, the classes, and graduated. And he's now at Marvel in his 3rd year. So after learning about stories like this, after seeing that there's an academy that trains these young adults for careers in visual effects and animation, after learning that we have this incredible studio that provides jobs and opportunity to learn more and to thrive in that space, and then see some of them go on to places like Marvel or Cartoon Network or Nickelodeon, it is just a miracle to me. And so I had to be a part of it. I had the sort of honor of getting that role in partnerships. And then the board came to me and offered me the opportunity to lead the organization. And I started last January in 2020 as the executive director. And I've somewhat been leading in a bit of crisis ever since, given the pandemic hit shortly thereafter. And we'll get into all the details, but it's just been an incredible ride. And we have the good fortune of working with people like David W. here on the show, who has brought incredible things to the organization, and I look forward to talking about them.
Yeah. Well, we'll definitely get more into what the organization is and how it serves the community. But that is quite an amazing story. Thank you for sharing that. Now, David, you've actually come from the industry, right? You're a visual effects artist. You worked in the industry. I think you mentioned you worked at ILM before. Is that correct?
Not ILM. I worked with them in conjunction with Bev Robot over as part of their in-house team with J.J. Abrams. And I worked over at Marvel as well, and a few other studios throughout, and just kind of been working on TV and film the past couple of years. So. Right.
So you have a strong visual effects background, and you've been doing this for a while, right? So what is it? Obviously, a place like Exceptional Minds needs people like you to teach them how to do the things that you do. So what is your role there? Are you a teacher, or are you a mentor, or what? How does that work for you?
Pretty much all of the above. The vision that we have for the studio is to not only educate them and get them up to a level where they can go outside these walls and do well at another facility, but what we're trying to do is we're trying to cultivate their ability to work more independently and to get their skill base up. And so my day to day is teaching them different techniques that are used in the industry currently, teaching them the newer techniques that are coming out, talking to them about the different softwares, and showing them how to work through a visual effects pipeline. So.
Okay. How long have you worked in the industry?
Over 15 years now.
Okay. All right. So you've been doing this for a while.
Just a little bit.
Yeah, for sure. Okay. Well, let's talk a little bit about Exceptional Minds and what is, what it is, because it is definitely something that's very special. I've heard about it in the past. I know that these are definitely the people that you guys are bringing into the school are people that are very special and that have an ability that is not always recognized, and no one really knows how to work with people with those abilities. And it seems like it totally made sense to me when I heard about what this school was. Like, of course, this is perfect. Like, there's so many things that they can do, and they have the ability and the concentration to do something that is sometimes very hard for other people that don't have those exceptional minds. So let's talk a little bit about the mission of the school and what it's all about.
Yeah, I mean, listen, it was founded about 10 years ago by members of some production teams here in LA in the entertainment industry, and they had kids with autism, and they were very concerned about the services cliff, that cliff at 18 years old that so many people with autism fall off of when certain services and support systems are no longer made available to people on the spectrum. And what are we going to then do with our kids? They're 18. They should be gainfully employed. They should be going out, either going to school and learning a trade. What do we do? And so often, those things were not available to their kids. And so they said, you know what, we, being in the arts, feel like we have an edge in terms of knowing a thing or two about the production space and the post-production space. Why don't we, who happen to have kids that are naturally gifted and inclined towards the create a school where we can teach them the finer points of visual effects, animation, post-production, and see if that's something that will stick with them. And absolutely, highly attentional, really gifted in terms of creative and technology. It made perfect sense to explore that sort of thing. Now, you would also say, wow, they chose the most challenging industry on the planet Earth to try to build a school around, especially for people that are neurodiverse. But they also know that those challenges could be overcome by people on the spectrum, given the kinds of skill sets that they bring to the table. So, 10 years ago, the school was founded, and by 2014, the first class had graduated. And actually, one of those graduates works at Marvel still. today. And so it was a bit of a success right out of the gate. But what they realized was upon graduation, where were all these students going to go? Some of them, of course, prevail and go on to incredible careers, and others, it takes a moment. And so they said, why don't we look at building a studio? And the first studio that they stood up was a visual effects studio, namely because one of the members of the founding team was a visual effects expert and guru in the industry, Susan Zwerman. And she knew exactly how to spin up a visual effects studio and knew exactly how to start procuring work, provided the talent that was going to do that work was up to snuff, and it very much was. So Marvel was one of our very first clients, and they've been an incredible one ever since. But that's really the genesis of Exceptional Minds, really just trying to find outlets for people with autism, an underrepresented, very marginalized, oftentimes group of people who are so often incredibly talented and have so much to offer. It's just about how do you channel that talent into something, and the talent happens to be really well channeled into the arts, the digital arts in particular.
Yeah, the fact that you guys are also a studio to make sure that they have the ability to practice is great. And what are when you build a studio, David, I'm assuming that you also work at that studio as well. Is that correct, David?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so you're teaching and you work at the studio at the same time. Is that correct?
Yeah, basically my day to day is I have about 6 artists right now down in the studio, and we give them shots. We're working on 3 different shows currently, and we'll take those shots in, we'll ingest them. I'll set up our base comp script with them, and then we'll start going through the process of turning out those shots for the client. So to get right into it, they start learning how to work with a client, work under deadlines, work with a certain amount of speed as well as attention to detail, because we're held to the same standards as every other artist that's out there. So our work has to be on point. So that's my job, is to teach them up how to get them there and how to get there at a reasonable time and pace and go from there.
Yeah, that's true. Now, David Siegel, you'd mentioned that it's very hard for people in the spectrum to find employment at the age of 18. So what are some of the things that happen generally to people with autism? Do they find job? What kind of jobs do they find that can accommodate their needs?
Yeah, it's actually a really staggering statistic. So, you may not know, but 1 in 54 people born in the United States are on the autism spectrum. And by the age of 18, as we've talked about, when those services start to sort of deteriorate or run out, unemployment and underemployment is really rampant in this population and in the autism community. There's nearly 1 million people that are going to be unemployed with autism at work-ready age of 18 in the next couple of years. And that is just unacceptable. It's a tremendous strain on the economy. It's over the last 30 years, it's been several $1 trillion of strain on the economy, and there's absolutely no excuse for it. There's always going to be people all over the place with whatever the condition may be that are just unable to work, but there's too many people with autism that are able to work. And while we're not going to be able to employ or help to procure employment for 1 million people, we're certainly going to do it for the number that we serve at Exceptional Minds. So yes, unemployment and underemployment is a huge issue. And that's the reason why we started this nonprofit. We are here to try to help as many young people that are, over the age of 18 and have a certificate of completion of high school and, of course, a diagnosis of autism, to come in and get down to work and learn a trade and graduate successfully, either into where David W. works in our studio, or, as we talked about, in outside employment. And that's what we do all day long. That's why we're here. We're here for outcomes. We're here to make sure that these young adults are leaving here with the tools they need to be employed.
Yeah, I think it's very true. Now you did say is like we cannot employ 1 million people in the industry, right? That's right. True. But there's got to be. I know it's teach what you know, which is a good thing. When they founded the school, they were teaching people visual effects. I think that there's definitely, listen, I've worked in the visual effects industry for a long time. I definitely feel that there is, and I've met people with on the spectrum as well, and I can know that they're the way that they think is extremely attention detailed in a lot of ways, right? Because that helps. Sometimes the focused attention actually helps calm them down in some situations, which I think is wonderful, because when you stare at pixels all day long, that's paying attention to things, right? And I think that's there. That when that again, like I said, when I saw what you guys are doing, it's like, that sounds great. But there's got to be other ways. Is there other trades that you guys are considering that would you guys would possibly expand into other things besides visual effects because of the skills you do? Or do you think that visual effects, well, right now in LA, I guess that's something that you guys are doing as well?
Yeah, I mean, listen, we have as robust a animation department and 3D and gaming department as we do visual effects. So, the expansion began a couple of years ago after the visual effects studio really took off and had some wings. An animation department was brought in, and we brought in a really seasoned veteran named Hallie Hoffman, who is just a creative visionary and really passionate about this organization and the people that he helps to serve. But animation has been a tremendous boon for us, and as you know, through the pandemic, animation did not slow down. And we just finished a 2.5-minute short for Sesame Street that we're gonna roll out in early October in a special screening, which we're really excited about. So, are we looking at other industries beyond visual effects, beyond gaming, beyond 3D, beyond animation? Absolutely. I think that the sky for us is not the limit. I think we can go much further than that, and I think that it's going to require over the next 5 years a really intense look at our strategic plan in terms of how we're going to scale, speaking of scale, this organization, but in a very thoughtful, very methodical kind of way, because we are not the kind of radical hockey stick growth that we're going for is going to be 2x, meaning we're going to be able to bring in twice the number of students and graduate that number of students, which for us is radical hockey stick growth. We're dealing with human beings. We're not scaling widgets here. So by doubling is very, very ambitious. And it's going to give David W. plenty of amazing artists to work with so that they can all earn, closer to, they can all earn more wages, and we can bring in more opportunities of work for them, and they can all move on to amazing jobs.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that's actually, what is your current scale and what is your ambition scale?
Yeah, I mean, listen, we serve close to 300 participants a year, whether it be part-time or full-time. So if we can get to double or more in that range in the next 3 to 5 years, that's huge. That is absolutely huge. And there is going to be a lot
of visual effects studios.
Right. So we're going to be arming the studios around town and the vendors. And by the way, Fortune 500 companies everywhere with amazing talent. I don't want to discount the fact that when you look at, you can look at Ernst & Young, or you can look at Salesforce, or you can look at Microsoft, or you can look at, Hilton. These are all companies that have major marketing departments, and they all need skilled artists and storytellers. So we never want to limit the potential of our artists to just, a few of the major studios and the vendors around town. We want to spread the wealth, and these artists have that capacity. So obviously we focus on the entertainment business and our relationships with companies like Disney, Netflix, Warner Media, Nickelodeon, and through Viacom, CBS. They're all profound. And their financial and, resource support is, unwavering. And we're very, very fortunate to have that, because we can't achieve our 5-year growth plans without the investment from our partners who are building our nonprofit to a place where we can actually achieve that growth. Yeah,
that's incredible. Now, David, I want to talk to you a little bit about your experience in the school. So had you had experience with people on the spectrum before you joined the school?
No. I was working for, it was American Hustle was the movie, and one of my supervisors on the show has a son that's actually here at the studio, and so I learned about it through him. And I've never worked with anyone that was autistic before coming here, and so it's been a huge growing opportunity for myself, just to learn how to communicate and how to work with each of the artists, because every artist has their own little different way of learning, picking up things, and you have to explain each one, each scenario different to each person, which is great.
Mm-hmm.
So it's been an awesome experience so far. So it's just been great.
Yeah, I can imagine that's been a challenge. I mean, to learn that. And how long? How long have you been at the school now? I think you might have mentioned it before.
Yeah, I've been here about 6 months now.
6 months. Okay.
Yeah. So, and I'm actually I come from teaching as well. I taught down Florida at a different school and stuff like that. So like I'm very well versed in teaching visual effects, but just throwing another. The autism was just another step for me to grow as a teacher and as an artist, and to help. So this has been a great
What were
experience.
some of the big challenges that you had to undertake when for your teaching abilities with people with autism, in terms of how you communicate with them specifically?
Sure. Like when I give like little mini lectures in the studio of a technique, sometimes I have to go through and go to each person's desk and kind of show them each a different style of picking up that technique. So I might have to go and actually show them like visually. Some cases I have to write it down so they can read it and for them to analyze it. And in some cases, it's just a matter of doing a little bit of both, and to kind of sit down with the artist and go with their pace and learning how to adjust for each artist. So that's been the biggest growth and for me as working through all this.
Right.
I mean, let me jump in. Let me tell you something about David W. I mean, this is someone who came in here cold, without the knowledge of autism that one would expect one might come with to Exceptional Minds, but that's not what we're looking for. We're looking for experts in their fields who are compassionate, who are empathic, and can work, with people of all sort of different walks of life, or from all different walks of life. And what I'll tell you about David, I mean, this is something that we saw early on. He connects personally, and he connects authentically. And there was an artist in the studio who had a passion for chess, and he discovered that early on because he relates to the students and he talks to them, and they're the artists, and he finds out what interests them, and he gets into their sort of lives, not just as an instructor, but as a mentor and a leader. And he discovered this chess affinity, and he's playing chess now once a week, if not more, with this particular artist. And what an incredible thing, because that's how we make it work. We are not here to create machines that are going to finish the work for Marvel. We're here to create incredibly well-rounded people who can, yes, finish the work for Marvel, but can also have fun doing it and can relate to their boss and their supervisor and can share with their boss their vulnerabilities or their interests. And I think for David to have come in so quickly and realize this and to relate at that level, I think is incredibly awesome. And it's exactly what we're looking for in the kinds of people that we work with here. Because if you can't do that, then what are we doing here?
Yeah, for sure. I think that's great. And I think that just, David W., you're a very generous person for giving your time and to realize, what you're doing and to helping these great people out. But I do think, they do have something a little bit special as well, that makes the way that their thought process is a little bit different in certain cases than other people may. Do you find that you have found certain things like, most of the people that come out of this school are actually better at this than most other artists I know? There's got to be something that you feel that they're able to offer in that way. What would you say that's true?
Yeah, I would say that like each artist is going to have their own like little specialty, and they lock onto something, and that could be like painting out something and making it pixel perfect, and it's like whoa, like that's amazing, and it could also be as something as simple as doing some tracking and they're going through and they're matching the pixels to pixels and making sure everything is working perfectly with the track. It's like they tend to have attention to detail that is very inspiring, actually,
Right.
because they shoot for perfection every single time, and sometimes you have to rein that in because it could get down into the void there and just try to hit every single pixel perfect. And so, there's a little bit of knowing when to say when is enough. But yeah, I would say
I think
in
all
my
artists have that
experience
problem.
so far, yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah,
You know,
for sure.
I remember working when I was back working for Disney and for Pixar. The big joke at Pixar was always, the movie's never finished; it just has to be delivered. So,
Yep.
you have to pry it out of their hands to get it released and distributed. But I feel like that's sometimes what we're working with these artists as well. They want to deliver at a level that is just uncompromised, and sometimes you have to just let them know that it is done and we are good. You can deliver.
Yeah, for sure. Now, you guys have a lot of, obviously you mentioned you guys are a nonprofit, and you guys have some great sponsors that have that must have helped you through the years, and probably continuing to help you. But how tell us a little bit about that? How you guys are funded, and how you guys are paying for your studio and getting things going.
Yeah, when I came aboard, I really, like I said, I was really excited about kind of what the model was too, because you're looking at a tuition-based organization that has this robust academy and part-time program as well that generates, the revenue needed to sustain that part of the organization. And then you also have this studio, again, this self-fulfilling prophecy where, graduates go and work and they're getting paid work from, like we talked about, Disney and Marvel and Warner and Universal and, Paramount, you name it, we're doing work for them. And we've worked on every MCU, every Marvel movie since, I think it might have been, Avenger. I think 2014, 2015. So, the work's incredible there, and that's very sustaining. And even through the pandemic, especially Marvel and Netflix and a few others, Amblin were really generous in terms of how much work they were giving us on the title side, because we could still do titles because we weren't constrained to being on campus all of the time, and we weren't constrained by some of the security restrictions that come from Disney and Marvel and some of the shots that we do. And of course, there's the fundraising side and the partnership side. And yes, working very closely with companies like Disney, who understand that while they're very generous in the amount of shots that they might give us in a year, that doesn't pay the bills. That actually isn't even something that we break even on. We actually lose money when we work for the studios, but that's okay because we're a learning organization. So we have to go back to our partners like the Disneys and the Warner Medias of the world and say, listen, thank you for the work and keep it coming. And wouldn't we love to have a minimum guarantee of that work? But please look to your corporate side, your diversity, inclusion, and CSR, corporate social responsibility side, to make sure that they're helping to fund us and sustain us. Because at the end of the day, we're helping to create a very diverse employment pool that those studios can dip into for their diverse and inclusive hiring practices. So it's a really sort of synergistic relationship where we're cultivating the kind of talent they're looking to hire, both out of our studio and just out of our graduate pool. And that's incredibly important. You also look at, our software partners, speaking of software, right? But, we're very close with Adobe, who is incredibly generous and has been a foundational partner of ours for many, many years. And we couldn't go on without them. Their software is at the baseline, is at the foundation of everything that's built upon it. And their financial contributions are sustaining as well. We also have a mandate that we don't pay for software. And that's a really important mandate to stick to, because we could not afford the millions of dollars of software that go into powering us at every level if we had to pay for it. And so the software companies understand that. And, between the studios and the software companies and the generous, donations from individuals, from major donors, from anonymous donors who come in and really want to support what we do, autism foundations, and, high net worth individuals and, corporate partners that aren't just involved in the hardware and the entertainment space, we can't live without them. And it's that mix that, rolls up into our sustainability. And let me tell you something, that 5-year plan I mentioned earlier can't be funded without, all of this tremendous influx of support and a whole lot more that's going to have to build upon that in the next 5 years.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think it's incredibly right. You know, with those staggering statistics that you shared with us, 1 in 54 people born in this country, diagnosed with being on the spectrum. That's got to be it's a big responsibility for us as a society to find opportunities for those people.
Yeah,
and I think it's really fantastic what you're doing. So, or it's really great. I also love the fact that you guys are like right away just getting them to work so that you can prove to people that these people are ready to work right away.
Right.
And that's really cool. I mean, obviously, I want to bring awareness to this as much as possible. That's just why I'm trying to put you guys on this podcast, and people can do more about it. But can you share a little bit with people, what that might be listening, what can be some of their opportunities, both in terms of contributing and helping, educating, as well as if they may know someone who has who's on the spectrum who could say, hey, this could be a great opportunity for this kid to do something in the school. I mean, I'd love to let them know about all the opportunities that you guys have to offer here.
Yeah, I mean, there was this great story over the summer, earlier, maybe it was even the spring of this year. A gentleman named Ryan Lowry posted a really beautiful letter on LinkedIn, basically saying, I am on the autism spectrum. I am a passionate animator. I want you, the proverbial you, whoever that may be that he was speaking to in LinkedIn, to hire me. I am reliable. I have incredible attention to detail. I can learn what I need to learn, and I will be a great worker, and I'll be loyal. And it broke the internet. It was a massive, massive viral moment. So massive that LinkedIn shut off his account because they thought it was a fraudulent account. So,
wow.
So the story here is that we saw that post. Actually, one of our partners at Method, I think it was Aaron Perry, formerly of Deluxe, who came to us and said, have you seen this? And we said, it's mind blowing. We're going to sort of reach out and just say hello. And we did. And Ryan's family wrote back and said, you're like the answer to our prayers. You are animation. You are, vocational workforce development. You could help him get a job. Wow. So lo and behold, we, through the help of Aaron Perry and his incredible team, Stereo D, they donated the money that financed Ryan's summer workshop program experience. And he took 8 weeks of animation courses at in our virtual school over the summer. And he's now in our he's now working through our fall part-time program. So this is like this incredible story of just authenticity, of reaching out through LinkedIn, putting yourself out there and self-advocating and screaming into a megaphone that we heard and we answered his call. But there are so many opportunities and so many different areas to support us in. Obviously, exceptional-minds.org and all the donations that can come in, but also just as important are all the volunteer opportunities that we do offer, our studio partners and whoever wants to come in and maybe give us a lecture on the finer points of resume writing or mock interviewing. DreamWorks has always been so great at coming in and giving us coaching on, how to approach the job market, as has, Nickelodeon, for example. We also offer employer education, where we go in and help educate studios and partners, vendors, et cetera, on how to work with people on the autism spectrum. Because Xavier, who's now at Marvel, as I mentioned, doesn't get dropped on Marvel's doorstep and we say good luck. There's an advanced team that really works with Marvel to make the fit work and to cultivate that relationship through its duration. So there's those sorts of things. There's just the donating of time to come in and, give us a great perspective on a piece of software. If Chaos wanted to come in and talk about, how to use V-Ray, right? And why and what its benefits are, et cetera. That's something that we're always open to. We worked with Adobe on an initiative where, we were part of a live event that they streamed. We were also part of Adobe Max. We're working with Disney on some really cool things right now that we can't wait to talk about. Warner Media, like what an incredible partnership this has been as well. Cartoon Network has given us a certain number of minutes of original content time that our students and our artists are working in right now to develop original content that's going to be distributed across Cartoon Network's channels. Netflix has come in as a partner and built with us this bespoke mentorship program where we've got 35 of our students partnered with 35 of their mentees. And they're teaching our students kind of how to work within the animation structure at Netflix. I mean, it goes on and on and on. I mean, there's so many great opportunities. You're going to have to stop me.
No, absolutely. Because I mean, obviously, we have a lot of, you guys are based in Los Angeles, although these days it doesn't really matter where you're geographically based with the pandemic. But we do have a lot of people who listen to this, and they're great educators and they're great contributors and great speakers. And I'd love for them to say, hey, you know what? I can donate some of that knowledge to this cause and to these people. And I think, people who can talk about lighting, as you mentioned, that would be a great thing. And I just want them to say, oh, this is what I can do. This is what I can do to help out. If go beyond the dollars as well. You can do, dollars are always great, but go beyond the dollars and give your time to that would be a fantastic thing, I think. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, listen, a great example was actually two examples. Toon Boom, as you may know, they had a new piece of storyboard software coming out last summer as well, or maybe it was before. And they came to us and said, we'd love to teach you how to use this new piece of software. And in success, we'll have you produce a piece of content that we could then use to showcase our relationship and also showcase the efficacy of the software and showcase the efficacy of a group like yours with autism and their ability to access the software. And it was this incredible trifecta of magic where we had our artists learn the software. They then produced the content. That content was then distributed across Toon Boom's platforms and our own and served as this great calling card for what we do and what Toon Boom does. So, anything that we can think of creatively to bring, the collaborative spirit together is great. Yes, the money is awesome. But we're not the kind of nonprofit that is hat in hand going, put money in our hat and we're going to disappear. Like there has to be utility in the relationship or what's the point of the relationship? We really want it to work both ways.
Yeah, and I think it's also really nice that you guys are, a nonprofit and that you have all of these industries that are competitors that are coming to you from all angles because of the unique nature of what you guys are doing. So, I know this town can be a little competitive sometimes in terms of the studios, but it's really nice that no, they're all coming to you because you guys are a central good cause for everyone. So I think that's a wonderful relationship.
And I don't want to forget, we're a great cause. And, Marvel came to us that first time to give us a project because yes, it probably felt good and it might have been a nice pat on the back for Disney to do it. But you know what? They would not have come back if the relationship wasn't good, if it didn't work, if we didn't deliver. So as much as it feels good to do it sort of the first time, they come back over and over again because they're working with great talent and they're hiring our talent over and over again. I was just joking with Victoria Alonso the other day, who just got that amazing promotion at Marvel. And I said, hey, you keep poaching all of our great talent. She's like, I'm going to keep poaching your talent. And I'm like, please do. That's the whole point why we exist. So,
That's great. That's great. Yeah, I've actually wanted to have Victoria on for a while on this podcast, but we'll see. She's very busy these days, I'm sure.
Yeah, the support's been great, and we really appreciate that partnership. It's been really, really nice.
No, absolutely. This is really, really cool. Okay, now, based on the fact that we just said, what I just said to that people should contribute and lecture stuff, David W., what could you give someone as an advice? Let's say someone says, I would love to come in and I would love to give a lecture on, let's say, lighting, to teach them the difference between rasterized rendering and ray tracing, right? Like this one of those things. What advice would you give to someone who's going to do a lecture about that would probably be helpful for them going into lecturing people specifically at Exceptional Minds?
I would say come into it with the understanding that you're going to have to change up your teaching a little bit. You're going to have some visuals that you can present to them, as well as maybe like a little bit of like an outline or something along those lines to help those that are more of a visual learner with type, or I guess a reader, book learner, to help follow along. And then if you give that demo, just be prepared to have some questions that come up, and you might have someone say, hey, can you slow down a little bit? Or, so that can also be something that could kind of like be surprising a little bit, but just be flexible and just come in and just be prepared to kind of like work through with each of the artists at their speed. Because some of the artists are going to be a little bit quicker than others picking up the different technique, and so you just have to be prepared for that.
Right. Right. Well, that's good. I think that's great advice, because I think it'd be great for for people to know that they can contribute, and then make sure that whatever they do contribute does benefit the community in a lot of great ways.
And if anyone's interested, they can just reach out to us. We'd be happy to have them come in and do like a small presentation someday. I'm sure we can figure something out for that, whether it's a Zoom or in person. So. Right.
How has, because you mentioned, David, that obviously you have to go to each person and in person go through the process depending on what their strength is in terms of their learning process. How has the pandemic affected that for you? Have you you still able to do that in a lot of ways?
Well, I'm here at the studio every day with all the artists.
So you are physically at the school?
Yes.
With them. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So,
yeah, I mean, for us, the virtual experience has been a really important call for us, because it's accelerated our sort of vision for our future. We do intend to, as we talked about earlier, scale and reach more people. We want to break down socioeconomic barriers. We want to break down geographic barriers. And the pandemic, as unimaginable as it has been around the world, it's given us this sort of challenge to look at things a bit differently and realize that we can serve people remotely and we can serve people virtually. It does not always replace the physical interactions, the socialization, and that that sort of hand-to-hand, so to speak. But it's been really successful for us. And over the last year and a half, we've graduated 2 classes completely virtually. We just started our fall semester back here on premise after 18 months. And there's, first and second year students now had never been here. So that's been great for them. But at the same time, they've gotten the education and they're really strong. And over the summer, we realized that we were serving 28 states in 4 different countries. And we were doing it, like I said, successfully with 20% more students enrolled in our part-time programs than ever before. So people have an appetite for it and they're seeing it be a success. So it's an area that, while can be challenging from a studio perspective, has really worked well actually for us as a school. And I think that we're going to look towards the future of having both virtual and on-premise classes and figure out ways where the virtual classes can have some social and physical interaction periodically. So that's, part of that growth plan. But we don't want to discount virtual, because it's worked really, really well, and it's enabled us to serve more people than ever before.
Yeah, I can imagine all of a sudden it's like, there's been this talk in the people who are hiring. It's like the new benefit that everyone's looking for is not just healthcare, is can I work from home, right? Right. And so that's what everyone's talking about. And some people have said is like, this is a great opportunity because now I can hire certain people that normally I would say, oh no, you're too far away, or I don't want to move away from, there's a guy in London I know who hired a bunch of really talented people in Scotland who didn't want to move to London, but it's not that bad, right? So I think that also it's an opportunity for education, right? Education suddenly like, no, maybe I don't have to be on campus, and I can continue to learn that way, which is great. And then you can reach out to so many people on the spectrum who's like, I can contribute even though I may be in Kansas or wherever, you know what I mean?
Well, you're absolutely right. And, there can come with autism some levels of social anxiety as well. And again, if you've met one person with autism, you've met one person with autism, so you can't generalize. Right. But the reality is the distributed workplace is real, and there are going to be people at home. There are going to be people on a work premise. And what the advantage, again, with the pandemic has been, we've been able to teach both those on campus and those off campus. And now they have sort of a dual sort of curricular almost background where they've learned in 2 different places. So they could serve if Disney decides to want to hire one of our students or grads, and they have an option to either work at home or on campus. They've learned how to sort of comport and work and learn in both. So I think we've had kind of an unforeseen advantage here in how we've taught over the last 18 months to give both the on-prem and virtual experience.
Yeah, that's great. Well, listen, I don't want to take up too much of your time, but you guys have been an amazing duo. I would love to, if you guys have anything else you want to promote or let people know about before we close out this podcast. It'd be great to know, what you guys are up to, or things that are looking forward besides your exceptional growth that you're about to go through.
We're super psyched about the Sesame Street screening that's coming up in October. So we'll definitely have more information to share on that soon. And we're going into our end of the year fundraising campaign, which is always about tuition assistance in other areas. And we're always out there working with all the media companies to secure opportunities for our students. Like I said, this Netflix mentorship program has just begun, and so that's been really exciting. So we want to see that be replicated out in the industry, because we've got lots of students and lots of graduates who are excited about being a mentor or being an intern, or being mentored and being an intern. And bottom line is, listen, hiring our amazing graduates, the media companies are diversifying their inclusive hiring practices. They're getting unexpected creative talent. They're getting people who think differently. And we're going to keep sort of cultivating that talent as long as, the studios and the media companies continue to hire them, which they absolutely should. How can they not? So, right. With that, too many young adults are unemployed with autism, and our students are changing that. So help us make that difference.
That's great. Thank you so much. And I really love that you guys really, make sure that they are well, they don't just go in there blind. You also help the employees figure out how to work with people with autism as well, because I think that's also a challenge. Not every, David kind of got thrown into it, but apparently he's done very well. Yeah, he's done very, very well. Can you what classes do you teach, David, by the way?
Well, right now I'm just teaching down the studio. So we're doing compositing, down there.
Okay.
Yeah. So, yeah.
Is that your main area of expertise, is compositing?
Yeah, I do. Compositing is my main. Like when I was out freelancing, I was a compositor, but I also do 3D stuff as well.
Okay. So. Yeah. Well, good compositors know 3D.
Yep.
Because they know they know what's going into the machine.
Exactly. Yes.
So yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. Well, that's so great. Well, thank you guys so much. I really appreciate this. This has been absolutely incredible. I'd really hope to, I'm gonna keep beating this drum as well, and on my side, and letting people know about what you guys are doing, and looking for opportunities for people. Say, you guys should contribute in some way or another to this program, because it is a great thing. So, thanks so much for doing this, guys. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you. We appreciate it, Chris.